enjoyed the talks here tonight so far. It's everything that I look for and hope for from the industry in Perth, is this sharing of ideas and looking for creative solutions to problems. One of the reasons that I got into accessibility in the first place was because I realised that there are a number of people who, through circumstances, don't actually get your ideas given to them. There's barriers in the way, and those are barriers we can remove. And you were saying earlier about, like, if you've got an idea, so great, share it with the world. And I'm like, good, that should be like literally the entire world. I am so up for that. So what I would like to talk about tonight is contrast. It's something that I hope, a topic that I hope most of the people here tonight will be able to apply and use in some small way in their work, even if it's not actually something that's directly part of your work. My job, I work as an accessibility consultant. I train people in how to make sure that their websites can be used by as many people as possible, regardless of their abilities or situation that they're in. Whenever I talk about the contrast requirements in WCAG, you might not be aware of WCAG, that's the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. They have requirements for how much contrast needs to be on a website. And when I speak to designers about it, they often kind of go, do I have to? Because, I have an artistic vision and I need to emphasize different parts of the content. How can I do that? If everything has to be high contrast, that would be awful. So I hope tonight to show you the hows and whys that you can actually use contrast in a way that enables as many people as possible to see your message. It worked. The reasons why contrast is important for anything that's displayed on a screen, probably for print as well, but I know nothing about print, so I won't get myself in trouble there, is because although we are making our websites on screen, nice, big, beautiful MacBooks and delightful big screens with high resolution, pretty much every other screen in the world from there is a step down. Everything else is crappier. Also, people have not great eyesight as they age. Sadly, we are all getting older. People want to be able to use websites, even if their eyesight isn't great. 1 in 10 men and a smaller number of women who, I don't know what that number is, are colourblind, and that can affect contrast perception as well. And these days, now that everyone's got tablets, smartphones, whatever, we're all going outside and looking at things and kind of wondering if we can actually see the content. So these are all the really important reasons why you need to pay attention to contrast. How we actually know what items need to be contrastish, is luckily the W3C doesn't necessarily say that every single item on a website must be high contrast. If you emphasize everything, you've emphasized nothing. So what is covered by these requirements is body text, headings, icons that are solely used to communicate, menus and functional items like buttons, maps, charts, graphs, and informational kind of images. That might sound like the entire website, but what it leaves is anything that's not actually necessary and useful content. And that's where the spirit and the vibe and the uniqueness of each website comes into play. Decorative elements don't have to meet these contrast requirements. Any inactive form items, if you're like, oh, well, you can't submit this form yet because you haven't put anything in your shopping cart, you don't need to make that button high contrast. You can just fade that away until you're ready for it. Logos are also exempt. I would say be careful though, because often the rest of your branding follows on from the logo design, so you may end up painting yourself into a bit of a corner. How do we know when we've got enough contrast? Like, how much is enough? The W3C has a really, really long technical page that is full of science and eyeballs and boring things. And yeah, it's terribly boring. I won't bother you with it. Minimum contrast ratio is 3:1. This is based on the luminance of your content, not the colour. So we're talking about the brightness and the saturation. There are ways that you can tell if something is low contrast. You can see here underneath the search, yeah, so clever. You can see underneath the search, that's a bit dodgy there, that button there's a bit dodgy. You'd want to test that. How do you test it? If you type contrast checker into Google, you will find a dozen of them. They're all great. They all do the same thing, so choose whichever one you like the look of. I use 3 because I do this for a living. One where I can type in values, one where I can check a whole page at once, and one where I've got an eyedropper and offline capability. Mandy found this really great article earlier this year, and as the author points out, there are 140 trillion possible combinations of hex codes in a foreground and background situation. Even if only 1% of them is accessible, that still leaves us 141 million combinations to choose. This really shouldn't be limiting what you have to choose from. I wanted to end just very quickly, even though I'm going over, with an invitation. If you have built something that meets these requirements, if it's part of your job to meet these requirements, and you've made something that you're actually really proud of and you think it's beautiful, please share it. Please blog about it. Please let other designers know how you did it and why you did it. Tell me so I can use it as an example in training of what a beautiful, accessible website looks like. I'd love to do that. Really, it's all about making sure that the maximum number of people are seeing your work. You've put so much time into it. Don't let anyone miss out. Thank you.